Hi, I'm Mark Edward Lewis, and this is the Edit volume. I'm here in the sovereign state of Texas at Hamill Brothers Studios. In this volume, we're going to show you how to do sync. We're going to show you how to cut things in, cut things out, insert things, get stuff so that it's organized. And by the end of this, I want you to be able to feel comfortable in a digital audio workstation, not a nonlinear editor, getting everything in the world of audio handled and organized so that you can do the mix, the music, the fix, and everything that comes after it. Let's roll. What's the purpose of editing? Why do we care? Why can't we just, cut off the stuff in the beginning and cut off the stuff at the end and just drop it in? Well, there's a lot that goes into cutting room tone in, cutting bad room out, cutting syllables, cutting noises, cutting sync issues. There's all kinds of things that we need to do in editing to make things just right and to make room in the mix for other things that are going to fill that sonic space where, in this case, dialogue would go. So this editing section is all about the tips and tricks and just general tools that we use to make this work. Now, why don't we just cut everything in a non-linear editor, in an NLE? Why don't we do that? I mean, editors are always coming up to me and saying, look, I'll just cut it, in the editor. Well, certain editors are really, really skilled at this. And we've had some tours with some editors with MZ where they just reveal some amazing skill, talent, and then awesome ability with particular NLEs to make audio edits really competitive with, what we would do in a digital audio workstation with a trained engineer. But most of us don't have those kinds of dope skills. And honestly, an NLE is the wrong tool to be cutting audio for a lot of reasons. The biggest reason is it's not easy at all in most NLEs to cut at the frame rate that audio is at, which is 48,000 frames a second. Most nonlinear editors, they're designed to do 23976 or 24 or 25 or 2997, one of these other things. And to break it into samples, waveforms, usually not so easy to do. Premiere does a pretty good job of it. Final Cut 7 used to do a good job of it, for those of you who are still using that venerable machine. Some other ones do too, but that's one reason. The other reason is that very, very few nonlinear editors do what I call track-based editing. And what that means is you put a plug-in on a track and it affects everything on that track from then all the way out. Premiere does it. Now, of course, DaVinci 12 does it. Well, imagine that you had a mix in Premiere of 850 audio channels. What a mess. You'll be scrolling for days. I mean, I don't even think it'll do it. So you have to get something that's that dense into a piece of software that'll allow you to do that. And we love tracks. More tracks, the merrier. And then you got deliverables, man. You got M&E, you got DX, you got 5.1 masters. There's no way to do 5.1 mixing in any kind of professional manner, maybe not even at all in most nonlinear editors. Now, with the Adobe products, you can dynamically link to Media Encoder. Media Encoder will do 5.1, it'll do Dolby, encoding and all that stuff, but you still won't have been able to create a mix that will pass quality control if you have a distribution deal. At the very least, you won't be able to compete with something or someone else's product who did do a professional mix in a digital audio workstation. Given the fact that you've got a frame-based problem and that, it's not so easy to do track-based mixing in a nonlinear editor, and they're just not set up to do automation, you really need to move all of your edits to a digital audio workstation. Something like Audition, right? For those of you who have Photoshop or Premiere or After Effects, you've got Audition too. It's sitting there. It might as well be just free to you. You're already making your payments for Photoshop or Premiere. You've got a really good audio workstation right there built in. So what's the big deal? Why do I care about dialogue? Can't I just drop it into my nonlinear editor, do some keyframes, add some cool presets from Cinema Sound and be done? Well, you can. Of course you can. Make it easy. But if you want to compete, it's never going to work. Keyframes are not going to get you there in terms of just moving a volume knob or moving the volume or moving some EQ curve or even using the ESP panel in Audition. It's not, I mean, it's great, okay? But it's not gonna get you the professional result in the end that one is gonna have you pass quality control and two is gonna let you compete. So hang on to your shorts because this is gonna be a lot of information. Some of it's just gonna hurt, sorry. But it's gonna change your life and your dialogue is gonna be sounding amazing. Check out the difference between what we just did. We recorded, this is just raw dialogue, and when it's all cleaned up. And here is the ENG, the way we shot it off our F8.
Mr. Snow.
Snurd.
Snurd. Mr. Snurd?
Snurd.
Okay. I'm hearing interesting reports in the area of a new kind of exterminator.
Okay, and how we have it now.
Mr. Snow.
Snurd.
Snurd. Mr. Snurd?
Snurd.
Okay. I'm hearing interesting reports in the area of a new kind of exterminator.
The exterminator.
And here's our beach sequence, that horrible thing that we had to do on the beach in Australia.
And have everyone on this beach know that you're a warrior in your spare time and you wield swords and chase maidens around?
Maidens.
Just surf and nonsense and positioning
And
problems.
have everyone on this beach know that you're a warrior in your spare time and you wield swords and chase maidens around?
Maidens.
And here's what we ended up with.
Come on, give us a look.
And have everyone on this beach know that you're a warrior in your spare time and you wield swords and chase maidens around?
Maidens.
Nice and clean and plenty of dialogue. In the donuts bit, check this out.
Good thing we came along when we did. Is there somewhere you'd like to be dropped off, Chelsea? Oh, good Lord.
Roger language. Oh, Jesus.
And then listen to you can hear that the drone and the noise and the fans and all the other stuff. I mean, it was 100 degrees the day that we shot, so we had to have the air conditioning on and the car
Good
running.
thing we came along when we did. Is there somewhere you'd like to be dropped off, Chelsea? Oh, good Lord.
Roger language. Oh, Jesus. My Savior and life I have made.
And how we ended up at the end of our edit.
All right, honey.
Good thing we came along when we did. Is there somewhere you'd like to be dropped off, Chelsea? Oh, good Lord.
Roger language. Oh, Jesus. My Savior and life I have made.
And notice that it's in stereo now, and the noise is way, way down. Their voices are nice and clean.
Good thing we came along when we did. Is there somewhere you'd like to be dropped off, Chelsea? Oh, good Lord.
Fantastic. Next is Macbeth, and we're in this very reverberous room, and you can check out what this is like and all kinds of issues that we're having here.
Nor time nor place did they not hear, and yet you would make both. They have made themselves, and that their fitness now does unmake you.
Pretty roomy, pretty ridiculous.
Nor time nor place did they not hear, and yet you would make.
Even if we solo one of these, let's see if we can find the one that's loud.
Nor time nor place did they not hear, and yet you would make both.
Yeah, so even that has tons and tons.
Nor
of
time
work.
nor place did they not hear,
And this is what we ended up with in the edit.
more the man. Nor time nor place did they not hear, and yet you would make both. They have made themselves, and that their fitness now does unmake you.
Pretty far cry from this.
Nor time nor place did they not hear, and yet you would make both. They have made themselves.
Yeah, so it's not a big deal to sit there and just move some keyframes and be done and go, well, it's good enough and things like that, depending on how your audio was recorded. If it wasn't recorded well or you were in a horrible situation, like we were here in the action sequence where we were in this giant reverberous room with a giant generator running the whole time and another compressor going on and off, sometimes you've got to do some draconian things and you want to have the knowledge and the tools at your disposal to be able to do that. Here's our original audio from our F8 from the action sequence with Becky.
I need exfiltration right away.
Negative arrow. Lose your tail, then head to the little Z.
And what if I can't?
It's a long walk.
So there's Russell, there's all kinds of other stuff in there, reverb, the buzz,
I need exfiltration right away.
all kinds of other things. Here's what we have here, an audition at the end of our edit, which we are going to show you all the steps along the way that we've done this.
I need exfiltration right away.
Negative arrow. Lose your tail, then head to the LZ.
What if I can't?
It's a long walk home. Longbow out.
Damn.
Super clean.
I need exfiltration right away.
Negative, Arrow. Lose your tail, then head to the LC.
What if
Obviously
I
affected.
can't?
It's a long walk home. Longbow out.
Damn.
Super cool. So how do we do this process of dialogue editing? Well, it's not that hard, and this process you can kind of apply to anything, including sound effects editing, ambience, music, whatever. But here's the gist of it. You're going to sync. You're going to take the audio and you're going to line it up with the picture, however you want to do that. Then you're going to organize the tracks. You're going to organize the files. You're going to figure out which microphones you want to use that sound best in each one of your scenes or whatever. And then you're going to spot the whole thing. By spotting means you're going to find out the places in the dialogue which works, which doesn't, what can you fix, what do you have to do ADR on, and all of that. Then you do the dialogue edit itself. And then finally, if you're not going to be doing the final mix, you export it in a way that the final mixer and mix software can use. In order to have a great audio editing experience in post, where nobody pulls their hair out and gets a haircut like mine, it's important to have enough lead time in your timeline. And that starts at the nonlinear editor level, the cutter. And we want to have 2 pops. We want to have, a 10 roll. We want to have all this space so that everybody at every stage, including visual effects, has enough room to be able to insert what they need. So we're going to open up Premiere and look at one of our sessions, and I'm going to show you what's required to make this work and make everybody happy in post. All right, here we are in Premiere, and you're probably all reasonably well familiar with this. If you're not, don't worry. What we're going to be showing you is pretty much works in just about any nonlinear editor, with a little fix here and there and a little change. But just don't worry. You'll just consult your physician. You'll be all right. So we've taken all of the bits, the footage and the audio and the recordings that we have from our action scene, dumped them all in here. You can see no spaces, a lot of just dumping, importing. When the gun flies out of your hand. Obviously not a lot of useful information there. And back in the old days, we would just sit here and manually sync these things to the clapper, to the slate clap. And now, of course, we have some awesome tools available to us that does automatic sync. If you can record in time code, that makes things so much easier, and you've got a really great reference and all that, but most of us don't. Most of us don't own an R88 or an F8 yet. And so we're doing things wild. We specifically did this without time code so that we could show you that all of this synchronization is possible without it, but it's still better with it. So you can do synchronization here in Premiere, but you can really, as of yet, you can only do one section at a time. Now you can do all kinds of multiple tracks of audio, which is super great, which you cannot do in any other nonlinear editor that I'm aware of, but it's still one clip at a time, one audio sequence at a time. We'll show you how to do that in a second. But we want to take all of this, as much of this as we can, and sync it together. And that we're going to use, for that we're going to use Pluralize. To do that, we're going to go File, Export, Final Cut Pro XML. And you're like, well, why do we want to do that? Don't we want to do a Premiere XML? Well, yeah, you do, but you're just going to trust me on this. It's not actually saving a Final Cut Pro XML. We're going to call this Fight Scene Dialogue Sync 2, just because it's a good name. It's going to do its thing. It's not really exporting Final Cut, but that's okay. We'll let it believe itself. And here is number 2. We just saved that. Now we're going to go to Pluralize. Up it comes. This is Pluralize 3.5. We're going to show you something cool about 4. But for those of you who have 3, this is how we've always done it. We're going to go to File. We're going to open Project from Premiere Pro. And you're like, well, wait a minute. We just did a Final Cut Pro export. I know, but if you do this, it's not going to work. It was a Premiere Pro XML. And look at that. There it is. We're going to hit Open. And it's going to come here and do its thing. Now, we have to wait before we can do anything. It needs to analyze all of this audio. We had 3 cameras running, and then we had our F8 recording without time code. And we're going to let this do all of its overviews. In the old days, we never really wanted to do what's called normalizing, where it takes the audio and makes it as loud as it can before it goes to zero. And that's because in those old days, and by old days I mean like even 10 years ago, it would only do it at 16-bit. We didn't really do a lot of 24-bit recording. And every time you did a normalization, you would add what's called dither noise. And that was actually just noise. It was pretty insignificant, but it was there. And if you're doing a whole lot of processing and things like that, it would create more noise. And we want to keep that signal to noise ratio really, really high. We want to get the noise level as far down as we can. Now in 24-bit, it's actually better for us in a digital audio workstation like Audition or any other one to do the normalizing in the digital audio workstation itself, because all of these DAWs are 32-bit float, which is way, way better than even 24-bit. And I don't need to explain to you why or what. That's just audio theory. You don't need to know it. But just know that there's no real point in doing normalizing here at this point, at this stage. In fact, there's no real point to doing normalizing anyway. But you can do it, and that's no problem. Just because in 24-bit, it's just not that big of a deal. But if you're given the chance to normalize, you don't really have to. All right, then we're going to hit synchronize. And then it's going to do its other cool light show, which is always so exciting. Now, it's not going to sync all of these perfectly. Some of these we shot without running audio, especially the action bits. We knew we were going to record everything in Foley and sound effects. And some of these things actually just won't sync at all and do have dialogue, which is concerning. You would think that Pluralize would do it all. But as we've mentioned, and we will continue to mention, just because you have reference audio doesn't mean that it's good, especially when you're in a big reverberous room and you've got one microphone that's far away on a boom pole and another one that's a lav, and the camera's way far away. You're going to have a significant delay. Plus, you've got reverb issues, and in that room, we had massive reverb issues. I mean, 10-second delay. Now look at this. You can see a bunch of these have not synced. Now, obviously, these here, there's nothing in them. So what? Big deal. But some of these are. Look, there's some video tracks here that have some dialogue of something going on, and here's some dialogue or something here. So that might be a concern to us. But at least all of this, and look how much we're talking about here, over 90 minutes of footage and things have been synced. In fact, cameras have been synced, which is super helpful. Now we're going to save project as, we're not going to do that at all. Export as a Premiere Pro document. This is going to take 2 seconds to do it. There it is. We're going to go double click this and it will show us where it is. It's right there. Fight scene dialogue FCP Premiere. And all we have to do is go back to Premiere, give it some room. Let's make a new bin. Let's see what happens. And theoretically, it's all in this little folder. So if I close this, it's all there. And let's find our new sequence. Let's check out dialogue synced. Now, dialogue replaced will show you everything that it was able to sync, but nothing that it wasn't, which is not really that useful for us here in what I would classify as assistant editing land. Now, here we are. Here's some good stuff that's been synced. Check it out.
There you go. Perfect. Camera speed. So let me get slightly.
Awesome. Pretty well synced. And you can hear the reverb. There's tons of reverb. Okay. How about this one? Now this one looks pretty good too. Obviously the audio has been rolled before the picture. Looks good. But what about this one? This is 2 Golf Take 3.
Camera speed.
Now, obviously, audio was recorded and tried to be synced, but for some reason, Pluralize didn't like it. Well, let's see what this one is here. What's this one? Little Orphan Annie piece of audio.
3.
Yeah, this is Golf Take 3.
Roll A, scene 2, golf, take 3.
So that should have synced here. Now in Premiere, what we can do is this. Let's try this one. Here's another over. Let me show you here. Let's see which one this one is. This is Golf Take 4. And what's this?
Scene 2 golf, take 4.
Okay, cool. So what we can do is select this, which is the camera and the camera reference audio, and then from our recorder, from our F8, clip, synchronize, and we have a whole bunch of things. If you have clip start, clip end, not really useful. Obviously, if you have time code recorded, it's super easy. You just go bang time code and it'll just lock it to the time code, which is great. But we don't have any of that. We're gonna do audio and mix down. And if I click OK, it'll analyze. Uh-oh, it doesn't like it. There's a problem. Well, let's see. How about this one? This is Golf Take 3. And we said this was Golf Take 3.
Roll A, scene 2 golf, take 3.
Okay, let's try this one. I'm just gonna now right click and do the same thing. Here's synchronize, mix down, audio. It's gonna analyze, and there you go. It made this one work. Well, lucky for us. But notice how it moved the picture, not the audio. I'm gonna undo. Yeah, it'll move the picture, not the audio, if the audio is to the right of the picture. What? I know. It's weird. Hopefully they'll fix it. But until they do, watch this. If you put the audio to the left and select them and go right click and synchronize and OK, it will move the audio. Just in case you're confused. If the picture, and we all were, if the picture is to the left of the audio you want to sync, you select all. I've got a key command for this. We're just going to go like this and mix down. It will move the picture. But if the audio is to the left, we select all, key command, sync, it moves the audio. Don't ask me why. They built it this way. At least it works and you know how to do it. But this one, right, did not work. Select, we've got a huge problem. Well, why is that, Mark? Well, we don't always know why the magic of digital voodoo doesn't work. Most likely, this is a huge reverberous room. In fact, let's just move this over here for a second. Just listen to the slate of this thing going. That's a huge, huge issue. But here's another issue. Premiere is one of the rare nonlinear editors which allows you to look at samples. I mean, you're actually going to be looking at not just frames, because I can zoom in to the frame level, but that's nowhere near the resolution that we are at 48,000 frames a second in analog or in audio. Now look here. If you look at here, and we're just at the frame level, I'm going to zoom in. Does this look like it's in sync to you? Now this is the boom, and this is the lav. There's no way those two are in sync, and they were recorded at the same time. Look at the reverb. Click. Now, if that isn't going to confuse Pluralize, I don't know what will. So how do we fix that, right? This is normal to frames only. And look at, here's frames. I'm going to move by frames here. One frame. Look at, you're well within a frame, but in the world of audio, that's nowhere. Easily able to confuse Pluralize. Well, here's what we do. We want to get to samples. And we can go here to show audio time units. Now, when I do this, I've got a key command for it, so don't freak out when I go in and out. Look what happens to the timeline. All of a sudden, I'm looking at 24,000 samples, 36,000 samples, right? At a 48,000 sample second, right? So, and look at the timeline. I can go back and forth. I have it as a key command. Now, you don't have to use this key command. I just use it myself. Back and forth. Cool. When I go to samples, I'll tell you what, here's the frames only. I'm going to zoom in as far as I can. I'm already there. When I go to samples, I can zoom in to crazy depths. And now when I use the arrow keys, I'm going at samples. That means that the length of the click of the slate is hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of samples, right? Pretty awesome. So what we want to do is line these two up, first of all. So let's do that. We're going to take this and we're going to drag it to here. Maybe a little bit further. And these are samples I'm looking at. These are not frames, these are samples. Way useful. Now, it's dead in sync. And when we come back out, look at this. Now I'm back in frame view, but look at it, it's telling me that we're a few hundred samples off from each other, right? This one we moved. And so let's take a listen to what this sounds like.
Take 4.
You can't get more in sync than that. I mean, we're sample accurate. Okay, let's see if when we line all of these up and we do synchronize, if it'll do it. Still won't do it. Aw, man. Well, in this case, because of whatever reason, Pluralize wouldn't fix it, Premiere wouldn't fix it, we got to go back to the good old days and we line up the slates. Here's how we want to do this. So let's find the solo, a track. Now, fortunately, these two tracks are in sync with picture.
Camera speed.
Okay, there's your slate hit. We're going to zoom in as far as we can here. Now, I want you to notice this is actually frame resolution. Notice that this is actually off between frames. That's one frame, and it's kind of in the middle. It's happening in the middle of the frame. Well, that sucks. So let's go to sample view, show audio time limits. I'm going to move these audio bits to this frame. You're like, whoa, that's putting it out of sync, isn't it? No, it's putting it into sync. If we know that this is the frame, look at that. I'm going to zoom in for you. Right there is where that hits, doesn't it? I'm going to put this audio hit right there. We're going to zoom in. We're in sample view. I'm going to move it by samples. Boom. Now for sure it's in sync. And it's like, oh, you're freaking me out. You're 559 samples off. Yeah, well, check it out. We're in sync. Now we're going to do a marker. I've made this marker here. Let's see, just that. I'm going to go back to regular frame view, and it'll drop me back out. Here is the sync point for the slate here. I'm going to come back in. I'm going to use sample view with my key command. Zoom in further. Uh-oh, looks like it's moved it back. Little bastard. Move this one until it's in sync. And move this one. Now these middle two tracks, there's actually nothing really on them, so we don't have to worry about it. Now we should be all happy. Bam, crash. I should be able now to take all of these, right click, unlink, and link again. Now these are pretty well in sync now to the sample, which is great. Sadly, sometimes we have to do this manual situation to get these things perfectly in sync. You don't have to be as anal as I just was to put them in frame accurate sync, but I tell you what, it makes everything a little less phasey. Now this is what Premiere did. It actually sunk these, didn't it, for us? Let's take a look at how it did. I'm still in sample view. So we're going to go to where this happens. Looks like we're a little late, but look at the sync. All three of these are in different places. And this is, as far as frame accuracy is concerned, this is what Premiere says is in sync. If we go back to frames, let me zoom all the way in here. Well, they are all within a frame, so to speak. But notice that even the camera data is early. So if we wanted and we were anal and crazy, it's good to be anal and crazy. We're going to slide this over in samples. Just go the fast way. We're going to slide this over in samples. A little bit there. We're going to slide this over in samples. There. 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 Now check out the size of a frame where we're at in the world of frames. If I go back out, we have to go back out because it won't show us otherwise. Frame, frame, frame. Now everything's in sync. Bam. Listen to the different, well, I can't, maybe I can undo this. Well, it's way too many undos to get there. But let's try another one. Let's see what, now this is what Pluralize did. Let's see how it did. Same kind of issue, right? You can actually hear a ka-da. Let's do this. Have a little fun. I'm going to take this. I'm going to go like this and move everybody down a little bit. So give me some room. And take this. We're going to copy everybody over. This will be the Pluralize, and this will be the Cinema Sound, for lack of a better term. All right. There's for sure the frame. Definitely. We're going to mark it. And let's go to the sample view. Gonna zoom way in. Gonna move this over. We're gonna take this one, put it about here. Let's make sure this is the right. Yeah. Look at all the volume and all kinds of noise that we've got going on in there. It's hard to tell, but we're gonna put this here. Slide it over a little bit more. There we go. Now let's go back to frame view. Here's the difference. Here's Pluralize.
Exfiltration.
Here's Cinema Sound.
Yeah, whatever that means. Exfiltration.
That versus this. 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 And you're like, well, that's pretty subtle. Yeah, you say that. Right up until you have to possibly, not that I recommend it, do more than one of these at the same time in your mix. And you're like, well, why would I do that? You wouldn't, except sometimes you have to get balance and body and who knows. And these are just completely out of sync in terms of samples. Frames in sync, samples out of sync. I don't know if you can hear if you listen to those upper frequencies, like upper mids. Much less phasing than this. That's how you put all this stuff in sync together manually and sample accurately. How do we get this out to our audio guys? Well, we just send it, right? No big deal. We leave it as is. Well, once we get our cut done, and ideally even before we start cutting, we want to add a leader, what I call a digital 10-second leader in front. Back in the old days when we spooled film, it took time for the film to start spooling up, and then once it was in sync and running at the right frame rate, 24 frames, then it took the audio tape machines a while to get going and that to go. And it took a minute or 30 seconds at least for all of that to roll every time you every time you hit play. Well, digital, we don't need that much space, but 10 seconds before the beginning of the hour is still something that we want to look at. I'm going to show you how to do this in a super simple way. So let's do this. I'm going to go to the top. And the first thing I'm going to do is take all of our footage and kind of move it way out of the way. So it's way out of the way. What we want to do is create a two-pop. A two-pop is simply a frame of tones or leader or whatever that happens 2 seconds before exactly the beginning of picture. You can't really tell when the beginning of the picture is in audio land because usually it's a fade up or something like this. But we want to know without question, without argument, where is the beginning of picture? And we do that by doing a little 1 kilohertz tone, 2 seconds to the frame before picture. So let's do that. And I want to add a 10-second leader as well. Now what I can do, I've already got some of these here, but I'm going to show you how to do this. One of the easy ways to do this is to go universal counting leader. Got this little thing here. It's going to make me another one. Yes, I want to Q on blip in, Q on blip out too. That sounds good. I got this. I'm just going to drag this in. Now 10 seconds is right here. We'll mark it. There we go. that means I should have a 2-pop right here. 58. There we go. Now, so we just got to cut this, not a big deal. We'll go to link here, drag this until it works. There we go. We're going to zoom in, and we should have this 2-pop right here. Bang. Sounds good. At the end, we're at 1 hour. And you're like, well, wait a minute. How did you get this 1 hour to be here? We go here, because usually it starts at 0 right at the top. Well, we don't want 0 and then 10 seconds and then, oh, picture starts at 10 seconds. That's just lame. We want this to start at 1 hour. We go here, start time, and we want the start time to be this, 59 minutes, 50 seconds for a 10-second leader. And then we want to set default for future sequences. Yes, sir. And that's how we do it. Now, the beginning of picture is going to be 1 hour, and 10 or 2 seconds earlier, we know for sure, no one can argue with us, that pop, that beep is 2 seconds before the hour. We're absolutely sure. Now, here's the problem with doing the universal counting leader for those of you who want to do it. I'm going to zoom into frames. Then we're going to go to samples. You're already starting to see the problem. Look at this. Now, if I was the audio guy, and in your edit window, this is what you saw, and we just dropped this in, 2 seconds before. Look at what I got. I got the beep happening long before the actual frame hit. Now, if I saw this, I wouldn't know where in here the beginning of the frame would be. And you're like, well, just go where they left it. Well, yeah, but how do I know there's not a drift? How do I know there's not an issue? And I'm going to call you and go, man, what is this? I got a ramp up on a 2-pop frequency tone that should be a hard hit. And I wouldn't know if there's a sync problem. And then we're wasting time. So we can't really use the audio that comes with the universal counting leader. We're going to get rid of it. Goodbye. Useless. Instead, we're going to generate bars and tones. Sounds good. I've already done it, but let me show you what's going to happen here. We're going to go to bars and tones. Now let's take a look at what this bar looks like if we zoom all the way in. Samples. Well, it starts there, doesn't it? It starts right at the front of the frame. I'm going to zoom back out to frame. We're going to go 1 frame forward. Go blade, blade. And we'll zoom in one more time, sample accurate to make sure that that is indeed no ramping, no weirdness. And now I am for sure got a 2-pop. 4, 3, and doom. And obviously there's some tones there. You can get rid of the tones if you don't want them, just as long as the audio is correct. And we're absolutely sure that the audio that we have here is only a frame long, and that's good. In addition to wanting a 2-pop at the front, we want one at the end, because it's just as important to know where 2 seconds before picture starts is as it is 2 seconds after the last frame of picture, because of drift. We may get drift. The video may run at a slightly different frame rate than the audio does, and over the course of 2 hours, you may lose a frame or 2 or 3. So at the end, you may have sound happening before actors' mouths or vice versa, neither of which are good. So we're going to bring this back, our footage. Let's say we've cut this. Great. Just want to make sure that's still at the front of picture. There it is. Go out to samples, frames. Good. We're going to then, you can use the universal counting leader if you want. Don't have to. I'm going to go to the end by hitting the end key. I'm at the end. The end of this is now 253.51.04. I'm going to drag bars and tones in. 2 seconds later is 53, isn't it? 04. I'm going to drag this right to there. I'm going to go 1 frame ahead. I'm going to cut this with the blade tool. Get rid of this. Going to zoom in just to make sure there's no funny business. Looks good. Now I know that I am 2 seconds away from the absolute end of picture. 2 and beep. There it is. Perfect. Now, there is never going to be a sync issue that we can't catch between your editing timeline and our audio timeline. Well, your audio timeline too. And it shouldn't ever be a problem when you're using dynamic linking, which I'm going to show you how to do in a second. But sometimes, you're not going to be exporting to Audition. You're going to be exporting to Pro Tools or who knows what digital audio workstation is in there. So we want to prep with 10 seconds of leader with a 2-pop at the front and a tail pop 2 seconds after the end of picture at the end. And every time we make a new edit, we need to make sure that those 2 pops are exactly the same, because you make a new edit and send it to your audio guys, or you have to do an edit and you have to conform your audio timeline as it is. You're going to want to make sure that all the edits that were made in your audio to conform to the new edit have the front pop and the tail pop happen at the same place. How do we get this to, let's say, Audition, first of all? Well, that's the easy one. Let's talk about how we're going to get this out to Pro Tools or Final Cut. Well, Final Cut, pretty easy. You can do it with an XML, or you can do an OMF, which is what my suggestion is. And you're like, well, what about all my automation and all that other stuff that I put in there that's so nice? Listen, when you get this into your timeline in an digital audio workstation, your automation ain't going to be that useful, believe me. So you can do it this way. We never want to do 16 bits. We want to do 24 bits, 48K. We definitely want to embed the audio. We don't want separate audio. Believe me, don't do it. And we want to make a complete copy of the audio files themselves, and that's really cool. Otherwise, you're trimming the audio files themselves in your edit. Not a really great idea. We click OK, and then you just select where you want this to go out. It's an OMF file. We hit save, and it's going to make an entire copy of the audio, and it's going to take each one of these audio files and make a new audio file and embed it in the OMF itself. You can do an OMF where all the audio files are sitting in a separate folder, but some digital audio workstations are unhappy about it. Namely, and most notorious, is in fact Pro Tools. So once it's done, you'll have an OMF file that you can send to your audio people, and they should be happy. Remembering that it will not have your automation or plugins or anything else like that. You won't even have picture. Then what you need to do, I'm just going to cancel this. You're going to go and make an export of your picture, just like you know how to do, because you're an editor already, I'm sure. Then you send the picture file and your OMF file to your audio folks, and then they get busy. Every time you make an update or a new edit, you got to do the same thing. New picture, new OMF, or you just send them where exactly the edits are in a paper edit. You've written it down, or send them an email, whichever you want to do. Now, for those of us who are going to be editing an Audition, it's a heck of a lot easier. We go to Edit in Adobe Audition, the whole sequence. Whole sequence. And you can do it in and out if you want. You say where you want this to go. We're going to say desktop, cinema sound, media, 2.5. We're going to stick it in there. We want to send through dynamic link. Now you can do export DV preview video, and what that will do is actually render the entire video as a separate video. But if you do dynamic link, what will happen is the video that we're going to see in Audition will be exactly the video files that your Premiere session is. So when you make an edit in Premiere, it will update the edit, the visual edit in Audition. What? I know, it's crazy. It's incredible. I'll show you. I'll prove it to you. Audio handles, it's probably hard to see. Audio handles are how much audio is going to go on either side of these edits. So if you're like, oh, I want this audio to be a little bit longer, I want it to be 2 seconds longer than this in, but you've only got one edit and 1 second of handles. Sorry, pal. Sorry, Charlie, you don't have it. So I like to make it, 5 seconds is good for me. I want to render audio clip effects. Either I do or I don't. Typically, I won't. Clip volume, sure. Open in Adobe Audition, of course. Now watch this. It's going to go like this. It's preparing all the audio. Now we have, I don't know, like 3 hours of audio in here, so it's going to have to go through and do a little work. In the old versions of Premiere, it had to sit there and render the video no matter what you did. And it took a while. If you had a 2-hour movie and you had a slow computer, you were waiting for 3 or 4 or 5 hours for it to do this. But now, because we have dynamic linking with the video, just like we have with Adobe After Effects and Media Encoder, which we'll show you how to do in the export section of the mixing chapter, you can actually integrate Premiere and After Effects and Audition and do your final export from Audition and include picture even if Premiere is not running. It's off the hook. Okay, we're gonna do a little time lapse and I'll come back in a second. Okay, Audition is now coming up and it is booting the session that it just rendered. And whammo, there it is. Fan-frickin-tastic. Zoom out, I'm already zoomed out. So here's all of our audio files. Now we'd have to go in and do a whole bunch of organization, which I'm gonna show you how to do in a second. But let's do a little test. So let's find the front. We'll go to the home key. We'll check out the front. Here's our markers. Check it out, our markers even showed up. So, okay. Let's see. Here at 11 seconds and 4 frames, we've got some picture. Let's go to 11 seconds and 4 frames. 1, 0, 0, 11, 04. Same picture. I'm gonna zoom in. Now I'm gonna take this and disable this track. Now I'm gonna have no picture. Audition. No picture. What? Let's go back here. Let's make it picture. Let's make it different picture. How about that? Nice gun picture. Gun picture. What? So awesome for when you have to do conform and your audio guy or you are in Audition. Instead of going, well, I don't know if it really syncs and what's happening, you just have the picture right there updating. I can make an edit in Premiere with Audition closed. I can save the Premiere Pro document. I can quit Premiere. I can open Audition and it will still update this with Premiere closed. So look, dynamic linking is not the only thing you can do to get your audio to a digital audio workstation, but it might be the best way to get audio to a digital workstation. Even if you're like, well, listen, I don't want to do my work in Audition, I'm a Pro Tools guy or whatever, I understand. But look, once you get it here into Audition, the options for you to export are all of a sudden many more. Now you're in a much better FCP export situation, and the OMFs are much more stable coming out of Audition. You can also go to Media Encoder, and then of course, obviously send stuff back. There's all kinds of other ways to get this stuff out. And just make sure here's OMF, Media Encapsulated. You can do the same thing here, but there are more options available to you that are not available in Premiere. Cool. Oh, here we are in Premiere. We have now cut, miraculously, in no time at all, our entire video. Hooray! Because this is not an editing education, this is an audio education. If you want to learn more about editing, you can go check out several awesome courses from MZ on the subject of doing so after you watch this. I'm channeling Alex Bono right now. So, what we want to do then is export, but I want to show you something different about how we want to get our timeline into Audition. We don't just want to throw it into Audition in a way where it just sits there and then we have to create all of our tracks again. We want to throw it into a pre-made template, and the template that has all of our dialogue and all of our sound effects and everything laid out track for track and buses and all these other things we're going to teach you about in Mix. So trust me that this is an important thing. And if you don't have Audition, you can still do this in Pro Tools or Logic or Performer or whatever you're using, Saw. It's just maybe a little bit different, but it's the same kind of old school way of getting this data into a template. Some digital audio workstations have better ways of doing it than others, but this is an old school way that will surefire work. Before we export, when we have our 2-pops in, which are cool, here we go, 2-pop, beep, good. We need to add timecode. Timecode is the other, surefire, I love saying surefire, way to make sure that there aren't any problems, so that my timeline lines up with your timeline visually as an audio person and a video person. We're all speaking the same language. Here's how we do it, and it's probably easiest to do this in Premiere than any other nonlinear editor that I've ever seen. Here's how we do it. We're gonna go here, we're gonna go here. We're gonna create transparent video. Now this is this little document button. I'm in the project window, just in case you're confused. Transparent video, you can see I've done this before. I'm gonna drag this old thing into video channel 4, video track 4. It's that length. I wanna make it the whole length. I just drag it over like this. From here, double click, I got nothing, right? Sure, fine. I'm gonna go to Window, Effects. And under Effects, I'm gonna search, you can see I've done this before. I just search for time and then time code shows up. I drag it here. Cool. Now I've got a little cool little window looking thing. But check it out. What's the difference between this and this? A disastrous difference, right? We want this to be our timecode window. So now we need to go to Effects Controls, and I happen to have it here, or you can pull it down from Effects Controls here. Once this is selected, then I have all of the effects and various controls and things for that object. I go down here to Field Symbol Format. I say SMPTE is fine. I want this to generate its own timecode. Now it's still incorrect, but it looks a little bit better, doesn't it? I've got 20 seconds and 10 frames, but over here I've got 10 seconds and 10 frames. And maybe that's because this timeline starts 10 seconds early. But also notice the hour marker, 0 versus 1. None of this is good. So we want to say starting timecode. We want this to be 00, 59, 50, 0. That's where our actual timecode starts, doesn't it? And now we have 10 seconds, 1 hour, 10 seconds, and 1 hour, 10 seconds. And we'll double check the end to make sure there's no crazy drift, which would be impossible, but it sometimes happens, the miracle of digital. That looks just like that to me. Now we can export and get it into our template. Now you can do this, obviously, if you're sending it to Pro Tools or Performer, you're gonna have to do an actual hard export of the video, which shouldn't take that much time. Premiere is really good about this. Now I'm using sequence in and out. You can see my out is here. I've made an in and out. There's a bunch of stuff back here that I don't want to have to load in. It's just extra garbage that I've been using. Audio handles at 5 seconds. We want to send through the dynamic link to Audition. We don't want to render audio clip effects because we will be doing our own audio clips effects in Audition. We'll say yes. Go ahead and overwrite the file I was fooling around with earlier. It's going to go like this. Prepare sequence data. And now preparing audio for Adobe Audition. We're going to time lapse. And here we go. It's going to bring up Adobe Audition. Go ahead and delete. That's fine. Here it comes. Bam. Shmam. Now it's going to prepare audio for us. And now, yes, we know about that. Here we are in Audition with everything as it should be. And here we go. We're going to make this a little larger for us. So notice that the mutes, at least in this version of Premiere, or sorry, the dynamic linking, do not come over. If I go back here, these channels are muted, but they are not muted here. So we have to go through and make mutes. It's a little bit of an annoyance, but the names of the channels do come in. Here's camera reference 1. I'm going to go over to, I'm going to hit I have a key command here to go to the mixer, and there it is, camera reference, just fine. So this is lovely. We have this built in, sounds good, feels good, great. Problem is, it's just a bunch of audio tracks. I don't have any routing set up. I don't have any of my template here. It's just a bunch of blah. So what I want to do is load my template, and I'll show you why my template is cool. We're going to go to Recent. We're going to go to Mixing Session Template. We're going to load it. Look how cool this is. Color-coded. I've got dialogue tracks 1, 2, 3, 4. I've got dialogue buses. I got dialogue reverbs built in. I got sound effects. Same thing. Buses, reverbs, Foley, buses, reverbs, music, buses, reverbs. And then I got ambiances, buses, reverbs, and masters. I got surround sound built in. I got surround headphones built in. I got Valhalla Room. I got all this cool stuff, which we're going to show you how to use in the mixing section, mixing volume. But I want my audio to be in this template, not in that other horrifying thing that comes over from here. So what do? And this is what you can do in any digital audio workstation. You can try to use one of their cool things if they have it to bring over and import and make things go to the right places, metadata, blah, blah, blah. Forget it. just do this. Go to multi-track, figure out what add mono audio track key command is. In this case, it's Option Shift M on the Mac. Select the top track, Option Shift M. I made one track. I'm going to make about 24 of these just by hitting keys. Now, in some programs, you can just sit there and say how many you want to add, which is super nice. Now, I don't know why it wants to put it below DX1, but it does. I'm going to drag DX1 out of the line of fire and back to where it belongs. Put it up here. I'm going to click track 1. What have I done? I've just made a bunch of blank tracks. I'm going to go back to my fight sequence. I'm going to select all, and now I'm going to copy. Command C. I probably shouldn't use key commands as much as I do. I just hate using a mouse, so I'm key commanding. But I expect you all know that Command A is select all. Copy is Command C. Done. Mixing session template. Now notice that the mixing session template here is at 1 hour. Well, that ain't where our session starts. Now this is a blank template, so we want to add the correct start time, which in this case, we have to use colons. We can't cheat like we can in Premiere. 00, 59, 50, 00. Now it's correct. I'm here. Command V will get me paste. Bang. Here it all is. All of our cool audio stuff. You can zoom out and there it is. But it has not been disturbed. We have not disturbed our lovely template. And otherwise what happens is things get pasted onto the buses and tracks get messed up and it's awful. Now what we do is we'll organize our dialogue tracks as we choose them, as we move through the editing session, which tracks go where, and we can drag them down to, oh, here's Becky's audio, here's Colton's audio, here's the boom, here's production, here's Bob, here's. And tracks that we don't want to use, we don't have to get rid of. We never want to get rid of those tracks. We'll just put them on something like this, which would be auxiliary audio 1, right? And you just label them auxiliary audio 2. And if you're in Pro Tools or something like this, you can actually disarm them or hide them so that you're not using up precious resources. In this case, muting them does the same thing in Audition. It saves us our resources. And we can come back here and we can easily color these to be something that is, reasonably nondescript, like maybe this deep purple, audio here. It's a little bit of a pain to have to color this way, but. And in a sense, we just add, 4 or 5 tracks of auxiliary audio for tracks that we just don't really have a good place for, especially if it's coming from the camera audio, the reference audio, which most of this stuff up here is. Notice that when I color the tracks, it also colors the clips, which is super cool. Now down here is the recorded audio, and this is the stuff that we'll want to be going through and hashing out to see which one of these we want. The boom, the lavs, the who knows what all. And that's how we bring stuff over and into our template. And then of course, since Jesus saves, so should you. Let's take a look at the preferences in Audition before we jump into this, because the defaults that Audition and any product really give you aren't necessarily the best in the West. So we're going to go up here, Preferences, and just start with the general. Now, most of these, if you're unfamiliar with how an Adobe product works, it's not really, they haven't really taken on the Apple idea, nor have they taken on the Windows idea. They've got kind of their own GUI, graphic user interface, way of doing things. For me, general, and under the general tab, you've got all this stuff, fine. The only thing that really matters to me is default fade curve. And sometimes it'll default here, depending on your system. We never want to see an S curve as the default fade. We want to see linear. And then under appearance, whatever suits, floats your boat. Doesn't really matter to me. None of this really matters. I mean, you can do Arctic freeze or whatever. It's a little much, but whatever, whatever your eyes like. Then under channel mapping, I'm running a Mark of the Unicorn Ultralight Mark III. In my home studio, we're at Hamill Brothers Studio here in Texas, but at my home studio, I actually have to map these differently because I'm running surround in a special way so that I can get, just my own special way. So in order to get the main stereo out, I actually have to run analog 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It starts with analog. This is left, right, center. For here, and for most of you, you're just going to want to use your standard main out, or if you're going out of the computer itself, there'll only be probably a left and a right. So make sure these are set up correctly. And of course, your stereo input, my device only has two analog inputs, and that's that. Now, here's the most important menu that there is in any digital audio workstation. Obviously, you want to select the interface that you want and the kind of audio for those of you who are on PC. You'll want the clock to be whatever your interface is. I don't really advise that you use your built-in computer, mainly because they're not going to be really solid clocks, not as good clocks as a dedicated external hardware unit. Now, if you can't afford one, then man, you got to go with what you got to go with. But I strongly suggest that you use that interface. And if you have an interface, you absolutely must use its internal clock. If you have a selection to be able to use the computer clock, don't do it. You'll have big problems. Then I/O buffer size. When I'm doing music, which means I'm triggering a lot of samples, I leave it at 512. When I'm doing big mixes where I'm really taxing my system, I'm at 256. And then for little things like this, I'm at 128, and that is as low as I go. If you start getting into these, you start either hyper-taxing your hard drives or hyper-taxing your system. When I do recording, sometimes I will get to 64. And the reason for that is these are buffers. If you didn't know, it says I/O buffer size. And it's basically, look, it'll even tell us, use smaller values for lower latency and higher values when experiencing dropouts during playback or recording. What this allows your computer to do is have a little breathing room when it's trying to process audio. And you're like, well, audio doesn't take that much data. And you're right, in modern computers, it doesn't. But if you're running 128 tracks, you're going to want to give that computer breathing room because it's not just processing the data, it's having to read 128 different files at the same time off of hard drives or an SSD or a RAID. And that really, your computer can't foretell the future. Having this buffer in there allows it some more breathing room, some more ability to work faster for you. The problem with it is when you're doing recording, it causes latency because again, it can't foretell the future. So it will buffer the sound in order to be able to process it. Now, 128 samples, I'm not sure how many milliseconds that is. It might be 1.5, maybe 2 milliseconds. But when you get out to 512 samples, you're like at 4 or 5 milliseconds, maybe 6, depending on your in and out, whatever. That can be really, really disconcerting, really, really difficult to follow, really, really difficult to listen to. And you may have sync problems when you're doing voiceover, ADR, or say nothing of actually doing music performance. So keep this as low as possible. Maybe go as low as 64 if you're only running a very few channels when you're doing recording, voiceover, ADR, whatever, but never 32, just not worth it. I like to attempt to force hardware to document sample rate because if you don't, sometimes you can have, depending on your hardware drivers, if they're good or bad, you can have a session at 448 and your hardware, your interface could be defaulted to another setting and that's a total drag. This is the hardware that the Mark of the Unicorn uses, and of course it's very, very smart and a good driver. Then auto save, Jesus saves and so should you. These are pretty good settings for me. Audition is a pretty quick save, it's no big deal. I don't really have any control surfaces that I want to use with Audition because there aren't that many that actually work with it unless it's Yukon. Mackie and Red Rover, not worth it, and you can quote me on that. Data, there's not much in here that I really want to deal with except sample rate conversion. I want that quality to be maximum. I don't want any other sample rate conversion to be here other than 100%. Now here's something that Audition does that no other nonlinear editor really does well, or digital audio workstation really does well. And that is it'll create a soft, non-viewable crossfade from 0 to whatever volume your object in the timeline starts at. So by a millisecond. That's really, really fast. And it keeps you from hearing pops and clicks when you go from completely nothing in a timeline to an object playing. And I like this. It's, some people have an issue with it. This goes away when you add an actual crossfade, then it kind of overwrites this. But it's the same thing with boundaries of crossfades. It actually really works really, really well. I like it. I turn it on, do it to taste. And then effects, open effect settings, restore. None of this really matters. I mean, if you like to sort things however you want your effects to be sorted, that's fine. Now you want your media disk cache. You want this to be on the fastest drives that you have. If you have space on your internal drive and it is an SSD, you can put it on your internal drive. No problems. If it is not an SSD or it is not a RAID, even if it's a RAID, my strong suggestion is you put it on the fastest external drive you have. You put it on your internal drive. This takes a lot of damage to your hard drives. And the last thing you want is to be putting a lot of damage on your system drive, and then all of a sudden it goes down and you're foobar. So right now I'm running this on my internal drive's SSD, so I got no problems. SSDs have no trouble doing this kind of thing. And let's see, all of this stuff is on my internal. My strong suggestion, again, not an SSD internal drive, send it to an external drive. Memory, another major deal. Minimum 5 gigabytes for Audition. And then, I've got 16 on this computer, 5 gigabytes minimum, and then this is fine. If you get less than 4, you start having issues, because remember, it's not just doing audio, it's also doing your video and caching that, and it needs the space. There's not much in here we need to deal with. Here we go. Multi-track default panning mode. Now this is a massive, massive conversation about what's called pan law. And I'm not even going to explain it. Let's talk about it on the blog. Let's not talk about it here. Have it at minus 3 dB center. Even this explanation of what they're talking about is difficult to understand. Just trust me. Put it here. Don't put it here. Don't put it anywhere else. Okay, non-exclusive is nice because, this is a good explanation actually. It said track solo to operate non-exclusive, not multiple to be soloed at the same time. So in other words, you can solo multiple tracks and hear all of them. Otherwise, you can only have one solo at a time, and no mixer that I have ever worked on allows such a silly thing to happen. Keyframes, loop playback, sure, enabled input, all this stuff is fine. And here's your default start time. I leave it at an hour because sometimes the pre-roll or the leader is not 10 seconds. Sometimes it's greater. At least this way I always know I'm going to start my timelines at the hour. And then auto match time. What is auto match? Well, in automation, which we're going to talk about in the mix section, but I'll just say it here. When you're in touch mode or latch mode, at least in touch mode, when you release the fader, it takes 1 second for that fader to go to where it was before or where it should be now. In latch, when you hit play, when you hit stop after you've been messing with the fader or the plugin, it will write 1 second later to allow the fader to achieve where it once was before you started rewriting. Multi-track clips. Now you can do this when inserting multiple clips. So let's say I got 5 files I want to dump in. I can actually have them all line up on one track like this, or I can have them go this way. This is how I like to deal with it, but you're up to you. Always default clip stretch mode, rendered high quality. I never want to hear stretching audio in a real time trying to kind of funk its way through the processing of that. I always want it to pre-render and all those other things, which we're going to show you how to do in a second. Here we go, playback. I like to see my pages moving while I'm scrolling. And this, for those of you who are Pro Tools, return playhead to start position on stop. This is how you get that vibe where you hit stop and it goes back to where you started. I use Pro Tools enough because I have to work in Hollywood where this feels very normal to me. And then obviously scroll there when it's done. Play audio and scrubbing, that's nice. JKL shuttle speed. I use the JKL's keys just like we do in Final Cut, just because it feels normal to me. And then spectral displays. We want to have Blackman Harris engaged. And I'm just going to say use that. Otherwise, these get very difficult to edit in, as we'll see in the fix section. Spectral resolution at 512, decibel range, the full 24 bits. I don't like the grid lines. And then only play the selected frequencies that I've selected. Again, catch me in the fix section and you'll see why. Same thing with the pitch. We want a 2K vertical pitch display and then a 75. Otherwise, it gets too crazy. And there's our opacity for the grids if we do want to use them. Very quiet. We want our time format, at least in this case, obviously your subjects, your projects will vary to be 24p. And that's kind of the general gist for the music bits. So let's talk about key commands. Key commands are like, well, so what? I got a mouse, I can use that. Or I got a Raven, I can do that too. Well, yeah, totally. But look, I come from a time when there was a thing called an Apple IIe. There was no such thing as a mouse. And I honestly have never worked faster than I ever have on a sequencer or any other, well, it was before it was a digital audio workstation. It was just a digital MIDI workstation. Never worked faster than I have on that Apple IIe because there was no mouse and we had to use key commands. And I was actually so fast that I'd have to wait for the Apple IIe to catch up with me. Obviously, we don't want that. But here's the commands that I use that I think are important. Now, you can program them any way you want. You don't have to, do anything. You don't have to use my key commands. I'll make my Audition and Logic key commands available on the Cinema Sound blog, but it's whatever works for you. Some of these key commands just show up because they just work for me. Some of the key commands I use specifically because I'm always going through all kinds of different audio workstations. I mean, some of my Logic key commands come from because I started with Performer. And some of my Premiere key commands come because I showed up in Final Cut one day and then DaVinci. Anyway, they all kind of get blended together, but use what works for you. But it's the keys themselves and the commands that we want to focus on that I strongly suggest you make commands for, or if your digital audio workstation doesn't allow you to, then you just learn them and get used to them. The first one is just the transport controls. Now you can come down here and mess around with play and doing all of this, and going to the end and the back and record and loop, and what a loss. Now in fact, I don't know of a digital audio workstation or an LE that doesn't allow you to hit play as the space bar, toggle, play, stop, That's fine. But what I like about Audition is it uses the JKL protocol from old Final Cut days. So I can hit L and I'm at play. If I hit L again, it's faster forward. L again, faster, again, until it can go as fast as it can. It sounds like little chipmunks. And then reverse is the same thing. 1J is a reverse at standard speed, and then again, until it's faster. And then K stops everything. Well, what's nice about Audition, something that we don't have in very few anymore, but the Final Cut 7 way of doing things, which if I go reverse, and then forward, it jumps me forward. So, but if I go way fast, I can slow it down by using L. So let me show you what I mean. That was a bit confusing. So if I go a bunch of L's going super fast, I can slow it down by going J, J, and now I'm going in reverse. I can go super fast in reverse and go L and slow down and slow down and slow down and slow down. And now go back and forward again. And in all the new NLEs, as soon as you go the other direction, it jumps you back in that direction. But that's not how I grew up. I grew up on spooling tape, and you would never do that to a tape machine. You just rip the tape off of the cap stands. So I love that. Transport controls. And then how to jump around. I like using the up and down arrows to jump. Just zoom in here, another key command we'll talk about. To jump from, independent, the blocks of the clips and the markers themselves is very, very useful for me to get from place to place and for also lining up cuts. So if I want to put a cut here, I want to make it jump right here. Let's say I want to move this here with snapping on, I can do that. I know that I'm lined up with this cut here. Also undo, all the basic computer commands you should just have in any program you use. Undo, cut, copy, paste. And those are, even if you could change them, don't change them. Command Z for undo, Command X for cut, Command C for copy, Command V, Victor for paste. Let's see. Then we also want to do muting. Muting both objects or clips. We don't want to do this. This is lousy. I just want to hit Command M and get that nice gray color. How nice is that? And then also muting the actual channels. Now for me, because I also use the letter M for all kinds of markers, which we'll talk about in a second, I use Command Option Control, and that means I know I'm muting the entire track which has its uses, and then just Command M for doing audition clip mute. It's the same in Pro Tools. And then you've got your tools that you obviously want to have, and I just leave these the way they are for Audition. There's no reason. Well, maybe A. I think that used to be V. I make it A, the arrow tool, and then R for the razor tool. You just don't want to be constantly going back here. And I'm also, by the way, not using a mouse. I'm using a trackpad from Bamboo, which is way faster because I can just jump over here on a big screen. At my studio at home, I've got 3 screens running, and otherwise you're just constantly scrolling your mouse to get anywhere. So I love having that kind of a situation where I can just jump to it. So your tools, make sure you get used to those numbers and letters or whatever you're going to use. The time key also very critical, not only for setting up loops, but just getting anywhere fast, without having to select something, where you can select all clips if you want, and that's T, which I use. And then, of course, the key commands window. I can't tell you how often I'm like, oh, here's a key I wish I had. And I've assigned mine to Option K. I don't even remember what the one that comes with Audition is. It's just Option K is how I have it in Logic. It's how I have it in Performer. It's all the same. So I can just jot in a new key command. And here's my key commands thing here, Mark's key commands, and we'll have that up on the website for you. Markers. So critical for marking all kinds of things, ADR and spotting and everything, just the letter M. And to go from marker to marker, it's Shift M forward and Control M back. I want to be able to do that. I don't really have a key for rename markers because it's just a bunch of keystrokes that I got to deal with anyway. Sometimes markers are so close together, it gets confused about what's what. So I'm having to click that. But markers are critical. Next thing you got to be critical about is cutting. Not like, this kind of cutting, but this kind of cutting, splitting. And if I want to cut this where my playhead is, I'm going to do Command K. And that kills it fantastically, and then I can move this around anywhere I want to. If I want to deal with a specific section, which is also kind of cool, I can do the time tool, T, go like this, make sure I've got this selected, and hit Command K. And now I've got both of these cut out. I don't even have to do an in and an out. Otherwise, right, you get it. I got to go, okay, cool, Command K, I'm going to go over here, Command K. But in this case, I just do T, bam, K, A, back to A, arrow, and I'm out. Super dope. You can also do, if you want to cut everybody, that's Command Bravo, B, and it just cuts them all the same, right? Which is also crazy, super useful. Zooms. Can't get around in any product without zooms. I mean, you can come up here and mess around with this. I mean, sometimes you have to just because of however long your sequence is. But I have it programmed in 2 ways. One, because I'm a Photoshop guy, and all of my, with the exception of Pro Tools, which won't allow you to change it from command brackets, Logic and Performer and Audition and everything else is Command plus, Command minus. My hands just go there because I use those programs so often. But if I do Command plus and I hold it down, it won't repeat, right? I can't go, zoom, 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 or less, I can only do it once. But if I use just the plus key and leave the default in Audition, then I can do this. And minus does the same thing. So for whatever reason, Adobe doesn't like the idea of you using a special command for zooming, but you can use them plus and minus and just get used to it. Then I also, for zooming vertically, have Option plus and minus, very useful to get in and out of. And then the track itself, if I want to deal with a specific track and have it blown up, I just use the default, which is nice. It's just Shift/. I go, bam, I got the whole track and all the plugins or all the routing or whatever it is I want to deal with, and then toggles it back and forth. Super useful for getting around. Let's see, maximize windows. Anytime, the windows themselves. Let's talk about windows. Now I'm on one screen just because none of y'all want to see a split screen or like that when I'm trying to work. So I have to switch between this mixing window and the editing window. and the actual picture editor, the spectral editor. So double clicking, I go here and I go back. And it's a weird way of getting around that Audition has. It's the only program that kind of has its own architecture of getting around. So I've made just to toggle the number 8 between the editor and the mixer, and then 0 when I have to double click this. 0 brings me back to the edit window, and 9 brings you back to the spectral window again. But to get back to the editor, I have to hit 0. And to get back to the mixer, I have to hit 8, 9. And if I go there, back to the mixer, it says, oh, you're not in a multi-track session, so I have to go 0 and then 8. It's a little bit bizarre, but it's way better than coming up here and using valuable moments to click and all this other stuff. And you're like, well, gosh, if you have a bamboo trackpad, how long does that take? Well, I don't know. The difference of maybe a quarter second, maybe a half a second. But in the course of doing a feature film, and you have to do that maybe 3,000 or 4,000 times, call it a nice round number, 1,000 times at a half a second, that's 500 seconds, right? That's whatever that is. What's the number there? 8-9 minutes. And you're like, well, come on, 8-9 minutes. Well, dude, 8-9 minutes is a long time, and that's just this key command. If you have all these key commands rolling, you're saving hours of time. All right, we talked about split. Let's talk about nudging. Another thing you've gotta have. Not to mention transport. So I've got the arrow keys set up to be transport for whatever the time index is in Audition. Obviously, it changes depending on your zoom level. Now, what's nice, though, is you can do the same thing with your objects. And instead of using arrows, I use option arrows. And now these move with the timestamp as well, which is super cool. Last thing I want to show you, second to last thing, is just moving between tracks. I just use the default. It's semicolon and P, which is super cool. With these windows, there's a thing in here when you get to, I'm going to go to the key commands. And if you say Windows, there's a thing in here. Oh, actually, let's go CD. CD editor, number 8. Look, nobody uses CDs anymore. I think Audition is the only program left that allows you to do CD burning. Nobody does this. You can if you want. There's probably better programs out there. Waveburner from Apple does a really great job. But don't let the key commands, because it defaults to one of these numbers opening the CD editor, which is like, gosh, nobody ever uses this. Now, I do salute Adobe for being the last people standing for burning Blu-rays. But even that has kind of fallen away for them. So anyway, just obviously number 8 is not something I use, but anytime you've got a new there's a CD window key command, just get rid of it, because you're not ever going to use it in post-production. I mean, there's never been a post-production process that has ever said, oh yeah, and we need a CD of that. No, just say no. So those are the key commands. Get those key commands. However you want to organize them is up to you, completely up to you, but do use them. You'll save hours and hours of your life. The only non-renewable resource we have is time. It'll save a lot of it and go a lot faster. Editing in sound isn't a lot of fun. I know it. And I wish it were, because we spend so much time doing it. But it's so important. We have to be able to get rid of the bad sounds. We have to be able to synchronize the audio. We have to be able to, get the good stuff organized so that we can launch off the launchpad and mix, fix music, sound effects, and everything else, and get that $50 million audience impact. And we've got a few more hours of this. Some of this stuff isn't intuitive. And I know some of you are like, man, I know all this. I promise you don't. And you're going to see it in the next few chapters in the edit volume. And by the way, I'm here at my favorite place to mix and record in the whole world. We'll be visiting this place a few times here throughout this education, Soul 7 Mix and Post. You can see their awesome website at soul7post.com. As you can see, they don't have a whole lot of gear here. And they're mixing on my favorite JBL 6300 series, and they mix the big system Screen Array 3. If you're in Los Angeles, you got to come visit this place. It's so dope. In the meantime, we'll see you in post.